Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Hambone here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a full review of the Call of Duty Vanguard beta. Be sure to like the video if you like it and subscribe for more content. Got lots of exciting Call of Duty stuff in the works, as well as some Halo Infinite things and various other videos in the works. I'm very excited for the next coming months. Without any further ado, let's jump straight on into the video. The first point I want to talk about is the general feel of the game. In all honesty, the game feels a little bit off to play. The sprint to fire time is the reason why it feels a little bit off, and on most weapons it basically renders them useless outside of camping with them or just walking around really slowly. To give a little bit of an example, the assault rifles in Call of Duty Warzone have sprint to fire times on par with most of the SMGs in the Vanguard beta. So that means that the assault rifles and the LMGs in the Vanguard beta have a ridiculous amount of sprint to fire time. It's almost like a second on some of them, and it really feels awful. One of the worst ones feeling wise for me was the bar, and then the DP27 was also ridiculous. I mean, I could give you an example, and I probably will have some bar footage playing on the screen. It's just crazy how long it takes to aim in after you're running with that thing, or even in general. By the time you get aimed and maybe get one shot off, most of the time any SMG in the game will have killed you, even at long range, which is something that I think they need to tune down a little bit. The MP40, it just shreds at any distance, but that's besides the point. If you drop the 8mm Kurtz rounds in the Thompson, it does the same thing. So they kind of need to tune the SMGs down maybe just a little bit, or maybe, not really tune them down, but bring all the other guns up. The sprint to fire time thing just feels so jarring to play, and especially if you play Warzone for a little bit and then you go in and you play the Vanguard beta, it's ridiculous how jarring it feels. I mean, it truly is. It's almost undescribable. Anything outside of submachine guns just felt unusable, unless you're talking about the STG-44. That's the one exception to this rule that I found. And what is it called? The MG-42 didn't feel too awful with the sprint to fire time, but other than that, they just felt terrible, and the aim down the sight times also felt really, really rough. And I'm hoping that we get some kind of perk that buffs the aim down the sight, similar to Sleight of Hand Pro and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and other things, to help this out a little bit, because it really, really just feels jarring to me. And the only guns that really felt great were the submachine guns, and my favorite thing to run was the Thompson with the 50-round drums of the 8mm Kurtz rounds, and I'll be dropping a video of the Thompson and my build shortly after this one, so stay tuned and look forward to that video. But now, don't even get me started on some of the other things that, like, if you were trying to run around with an LMG, you're having a nightmare of a time in this beta. I mean, it really was bad. But another thing that just drives me up the wall is the anti-drop shotting measures, because they just feel awkward, and they cause for really weird movements. So instead of going prone when you crouch while shooting, when you press the crouch button while shooting, you now crouch. Or if you force it to go prone, then what you do is, as you're laying down, your character stops aiming. So you're still shooting, but you're hip firing now, and then you have to aim back in once you lay down. And it is just so jarring. I mean, it truly is. It's one of the awkwardest movements that I've ever felt in a video game. And while, yes, drop shotting can be a problem, I would have preferred it to this, honestly. This is really jarring, because there's times when you react and you drop shot, and then it just gets you killed, or it really kills you. And it's really a nightmare to do in this game. I recommend, if you are a drop shotter or you do that often, to kind of get that out of your playstyle before Vanguard drops, or you're going to have a really bad time. But overall, the game feels kind of nice outside of the issues mentioned. Doors and windows work like they should, and the new destructible environments mix things up. Sliding feels smooth, and mounting, it can be kind of awkward depending on the type of cover you're hiding behind. There are instances where I wanted to mount like on the side of a box that was plenty big enough to do so, but it kept setting me on top of the box instead of the side. So they're just little weird things like that need to be ironed out. Now let's talk about the gunplay. The guns feel nice for the most part outside of the sprint to fire speeds on most of them. And the real issue here is that they don't really feel like World War II guns, and this is in part due to the insane, crazy 10 attachment system that you can do. Now, yes, you heard me right. Every gun gets 10 attachments, so you can equip 10 attachments at once. This is like pick 10 on steroids, but You can pick 10 attachments at once to make any gun ridiculous. I mean, you can do weird things, you know, and while it is nice to have that huge range of customization, it really takes away from the World War II feel of this game. It feels more like a modern shooter with World War II skins on the guns. And the guns feel great. I mean, they feel nice. Other than sprint to fire times, the guns feel nice, you know. And like I said, the Thompson had become my favorite, you know, but if you're into, you know, historical authenticity or anything like that, holding true to the time period, you're going to be upset with the way the guns work in this game. Just going to be honest with you. But I mean, historical authenticity isn't exactly what Call of Duty is known for anyways, so there's that. They're known for being an arcade shooter, so. But overall, the gunplay is fantastic except for the sprint to fire times. So, just food for thought there. Now let's talk about the maps in the game modes. We only had access to 4 maps in the beta, 5 if you include the one where you can do the 1v1 King of the Hill mode. But overall, the maps weren't that bad. Due to the spawn system, however, they feel very, very random. Domination and Search and Destroy had the closest to normal spawns in the beta. Team Deathmatch, Kill Confirmed, Patrol just had you spawning on top of the enemy, behind the enemy, in front of the enemy, and all over the place. I mean, it was random, and I realized that they're going for that whole squad spawn system like they did in Modern Warfare 2019, but it just really sucks because, frankly, you just spawn all over the place. It never feels consistently. There's never a flow. You know, this is especially bad when the player counts were higher. It just felt like there were enemies everywhere, and it's just random. You know, you'll spawn, and there'll be like 5 enemies in front of you, or you know, you'll run around the corner and there'll be 1 enemy and then 4 more enemies will spawn, or vice versa. It's just, it was a mess. You know, anything higher than 6v6 just felt like there was people everywhere constantly, and you never knew where the enemy was going to come from. You know, you couldn't rely on the enemy to come from a certain direction, and so it just kind of flew, you know, threw everything off. There wasn't any kind of flow to the matches, and the only really matches where there was any kind of flow was in Search and Destroy and Domination, because they were more of a linear experience, because, you know, you had A, B, and C in Domination, and you had the 2 bombs in Search. So you could count on, you know, there being something linear with the, you know, with that. And the new destructible environments, as much as they're fun, they only compounded this feeling. And I wound up, and most people too, I think, just running FMJ bullets the whole beta. Because if you thought that, if you figured someone was behind a wall, you could just mow the wall down and kill them before they could even see you most of the time with FMJ bullets. And so there is a lot of that you have to get around and kind of get over with the beta and different things like that. And, you know, the destructible environments were nice, but the spawns really need some serious work before they, before launch. And, you know, usually in Call of Duty betas, the spawns are kind of janky anyways. So just note that the spawns were absolutely crazy. And overall, the maps just felt random most of the time without any sort of flow to them. They just kind of, random things happened in random places. And most of the time, you know, the way that you got a lot of kills was you just happened to kind of fall into it and find a decent enough area that you kind of patrol around and control. But I mean, every room has 5 doors and windows that people can come in and shoot you through, and shoot you from, and shoot you through the wall, and it just becomes a bit of a mess, really. And so yeah, just take note of that. You know, if you're not a big fan of destructible environments or whatever, you may have to pass on this Call of Duty, because they went hard on the destructibles. I mean, every map in the beginning has all kinds of boarded up areas, and then by the end of the match, those are all destroyed, and you can see across the map and through houses and whatever. I mean, it's just crazy how much they went out on this destructible thing. So if that's not your thing, be sure to take note of that. Now, as far as the game modes go, we had access to several game modes, and they were fun. And Patrol and King of the Hill were the 2 unique and new ones. Patrol is basically hardpoint with a moving hardpoint that's always around. You just have to kind of walk with it slowly around the map. And it's pretty fun, especially if you get, you know, a couple of guys. If there's like 5 or 6 enemies in the hard point, and you're like posted up with the LMG or something where you know the hard point is going to come through, and it leads to some crazy engagements doing stuff like that. Patrol is probably the most fun game mode, I would say, in the beta outside of Domination. I actually had more fun playing Domination than really anything other than, of course, Patrol. And, you know, I had a lot of fun with Patrol. It's very interesting, and I'll definitely be playing it at launch. Now, King of the Hill is a sort of deathmatch where 8 teams compete to be the last one standing by keeping their lives until the end. Sort of like the 2v2 mode from Modern Warfare. I can't remember what it was called. but it's sort of similar to that. I believe it's called Gunfight, actually. Very similar to Gunfight, but it was a pretty interesting mode. I didn't have a whole lot of fun. It was probably my least favorite mode in the beta, but I only played it solo. It would be a lot more fun with friends, and I could see where, you know, hopping on as a duo team or as a 4-man team, and that would be a whole lot of fun. And just kind of sweating it out on small maps over the course of, 20 or 30 minutes. I could see where it would be fun. But overall, the modes were fun, and the usual COD modes were alright, with a couple of new ones thrown in that were nice. And then they had the pacing feature, which allowed you to kind of, select how chaotic you wanted it to be. But I couldn't get it to work for me in the beta. It just kind of threw me into whatever. So there is that. Now, the bugs and issues that I had, I only had a couple of bugs my whole time with the beta. The biggest issue I had was packet burst and packet loss with some general lag mixed in. And that caused me to die several times. And it wasn't every day, and it didn't happen, forever. But when it hit, it was really bad. But overall, I had good performance with the game, and I played the entire thing on 1080p on an Xbox Series S. Now, that is, of course, the all-digital console. So in my conclusion, I think the beta was pretty good as a whole. It was definitely decent, I would say. Not the greatest, but it felt better than I thought it would. The game definitely has its issues, and it really doesn't capture the World War II feel. I don't know if it's just where I don't know if it's where it doesn't have factions or, of course, the guns, but something about it just doesn't feel World War II to me. And so there is that to be thought about. And the game definitely has some issues that need to be ironed out before it can be a good game. The potential is definitely there to make it a good game. It just needs some work to make it one. And overall, I had a great time with the beta, and I actually had a lot of fun playing it, and I'm looking forward to the release. See you on November 5th. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.